34 days of dreams culminate in a night of destiny and lead to a moment of deliverance. We have a new world champion, and it is India who win the ICC Women's World Cup 2025, perhaps the closest World Cup we've seen in a long time. And for one final time this World Cup, we've got the company of Firdose, Raunak, Sudarshanan to look back at what has been just historic. So everyone, strap in. And of course, this tale starts where it ended with India. Ronak, we're a generation that grew up on tales of 83 and how 25th of June 1983 changed everything. It's not often you get to live a moment knowing full well that it's going to be monumental for the rest of our lives. And that is what this is.
Absolutely. I'm glad you started there because now the difference in the tales that the generation after us will hear will not be tales that you'll have to really work hard to sell, which was the challenge and which is where people like Sudarshan and those before him, who had to really fight hard to convince editors of the past that it's important to do a women's story. It's important to cover this story as well. And it was always the footnote of the ecosystem. It's no longer the footnote of the ecosystem. This is, of course, the watershed moment. And India winning it is at the peak of India's power in international cricket and at the peak of social media's reach in the world, especially in India. That is a killer combination. And that's why it was so important that India go all the way. That now it's not going to be hard to not only tell the stories of this team, but the stories of the previous teams will be told and will be read with so much more emotion, so much more almost guilt in the form of appreciation as to how long it's taken us. And the fact that Diane Idolji was there, Shanta Rangaswamy was there, I think Shanta Rangaswamy was there, Julan and Mitali and Anjum being part of that celebration. This will be the time where for the next few months, I'm sure we will find out how hard it was for some of these teams, how they came back with complete injustice, not in terms of results, but in terms of rewards. When the 2005 team came back as runners-up, a team that Mandira Bedi had to lobby to get enough money and sponsors to go and play the World Cup, they got, I think, something like 9,000 rupees per squad member. And 2 years before that, the 2003 men's World Cup team runners-up got Ambi Valley Flats from Sahara. So this is not them versus us. This is just years and years of women's cricket not being given the credit that it so richly deserved. It was irrelevant whether it created revenue. That was not the responsibility of the administrators. That is the responsibility of the market, and the market will go depending on how the administrators keep their players. So I think that is the big lesson. Now, Harmanpreet Kaur and co have given India the moment it needed, given world cricket and women's cricket the moment it needed for the women's World Cup to scale up, to be an entity of its own, to not necessarily be looked at as an inconvenience, to not necessarily be looked at as an event where we have to put most of the games at second tier venues. Dare I say, we won't have that again. We'll now be looking at top tier venues. We'll now be looking at this being looked at as an event that the world does want and not relegated into parts of the calendar that you're just doing because you have to. So I think that's the big difference. That's for the medium term. And for the long term, I think you'll have more glorified, more educated, more flair writers than me, like Firdose and Suds, who'll talk about how many kids will pick up the bat, how many girls will look at cricket as an even more serious option than in the last few years with the advent of the WPL and franchise leagues. And I'll just finish by saying that it's really important for Indian parents to empower kids to play cricket, girls to play cricket, because that is something that is a challenge no matter what economic background you come from, whether you're from a posh school like Pratika Rawal or from a remote village like Kranti Gaur or Sri Charni. When under 15 girls have to travel or under 19 girls have to travel, when under 19 boys travel, you don't worry about their accommodation, where they'll sleep, which trains they'll take, what will the night situation be like. But no matter which part of the society you come from, that's always a concern. So there is a responsibility of the entire ecosystem now to ensure that girls are empowered, parents are empowered, and this is the crowning glory that yes, now our girls can play cricket. It's not only necessarily the Olympic sports or wrestling and kabaddi, which have their own challenges, but cricket was never the serious sport for the girls. And that I think will change in the mindset of a lot of Indian parents, which the fruits of which we'll only probably see 20, 30 years from now, when that first kid who comes to an international game says, I watched the 2025 Women's World Cup and I was inspired.
Yep. Sachin Tendulkar took up the game after 83 happened, many girls in this country are going to take up in the name of Smriti Mandana and Jemima Rodrigues and Harmanpreet Kaur and everyone from the squad. So I want you to take the point forward from Raunak because this is a win 50 years in the making. It only added to the event and the occasion that you had Jhulan Goswami and Mithali Raj getting their hands. They have been part. They have carried Indian cricket when no one was watching. India played a final back in 2005 as well. Not many in the country even knew that was happening. So just traverse this path for the Indian women's cricket team.
I'll go back a couple of years before moving absolutely forward. We were talking about the emergence of the WPL, what it did to the women's game in India specifically. And one small story was about, say, I'll use this as an example. I was speaking to Uma Chetri's brother and her coach. She comes from a very remote location in Assam. It's very far away from even Guwahati, the capital city of that state, where she had to travel a lot to just get to her school. And was by accident that she got into sport. There was a cricket ground in front of her school where she was, where the coach, she saw players playing, boys, of course, but then she took interest and all that. Now, this Indian team has such a variety of players. You see players from metro cities or bigger states, bigger cities. Moga is on the map now. Everybody will know because of Harmanpreet Kaur. There's Smriti Mandana from Sangli, Jemima Rodrigues from Mumbai. But there are these other players like Kranti God from a distant location in from Indore in Madhya Pradesh, Uma
Yeah.
Chetri from Assam. So what this win does is puts these kind of players, their states, their villages on the map, and any small kid in that part of a region and for any other remote location in India will now look up to these players and say they can become such kind of players. The second thing is, yes, Ronak mentioned about social media's implication on this win. And one small story again was Jhulan Goswami looked at the 1997 World Cup final at Eden Gardens, where she was a ball girl, and that inspired her. But these stories back then were very far and few. How many players would, young players would get an opportunity of being a ball boy or a ball girl in a cricket ground? But now, with this match being streamed at such a large scale, televised, and even there was so many ads and whatnot for this final, and the color that the game itself produced, the match was superb. It wasn't one sided. So there was this competition of fighting and winning, but also the crowd that built the environment. All this kind of adds up, and these I think it's easy to brush these off by saying crowd doesn't matter for a young kid to pick up sport, but everyone wants to be the hero in their lives, right? People lauding them when they perform. So I think that is what this World Cup final, the World Cup win does for India. And I'm sure like the WPL is always going to be there, but there's almost nothing like a World Cup win. And this effect, I think even in 4 years, 5 years time, we'll start seeing the effects of that by more increased number of girls in cricket academies and whatnot.
Firdose, it's quite fitting that this story culminated on the outskirts of the home of Bollywood. Because if you look through this Indian campaign, there are so many storylines which are beyond a scriptwriter's wildest imagination.
Definitely. I was a child that grew up watching a lot of Bollywood, and I imagine that this will make some great blockbusters. I mean, the Jemima Rodriguez story, I can already see it. Jemmy and Jade, and you've got Jemima and her little Jack Russell, and how they got through all the adversity and ended up playing the knock of their lives at a World Cup semi-final. And I think her story, watching what motivates her, watching her recite prayers to herself before she faces every ball, I'm sure that's absolutely exhausting. But she's such a live wire. She's so open with her story. Her story of anxiety also very important in a world where we don't talk about mental health issues enough, particularly in certain cultures and particularly in certain places. I think it's really worth acknowledging. But I think the story that I'd really like to see made is the Shafali Verma one, because to come from nowhere, not in the squad, playing state cricket, T20 cricket, and then putting in the performance of your life in the final, being given the ball after barely bowling for India previously, I think 6 times in 31 ODIs, and taking the 2 wickets that turned the match on its head, Sunil and Marizan Cup. I think that was phenomenal. I can't believe she's 21 years old. And, what were we all doing at 21? I had just started working at Cricinfo, in fact. But it's unbelievable what she's managed to do. And just to be able to pull on those reserves of mental fortitude, I think was so outstanding. One last Bollywood, maybe little pitch, if anybody's keen, is the Harmanpreet story from 2017, 171 against Australia in a semi-final, and now being able to take that full circle, to take that catch right at the end, to be the person that holds the ball, that wins the World Cup for India. That's unbelievable. And Harman has faced a lot of challenges. There's been a lot of question marks over her captaincy, over her form, whether it's T20, whether it's 50 over. She didn't have a great World Cup until right towards the end of this tournament as well. So she's a really interesting story for me as well. And I think we'd have a trilogy maybe now. So it'd be like Lord of the Rings trilogy.
I'll throw in another, and this could perhaps act as a sequel to one already iconic Bollywood film from previous decades, which is the story of the coach. Because a man who didn't get to play for the country himself, Amol Muzumdar, now becomes the coach of India's first ever Women's World Cup winning team. Congratulations to him and the support staff as well. Raunak and Sudarshanan, you guys had the privilege of witnessing a lot of parts of this campaign from the closest quarters. I want you to quickly identify what to you will stand out the most from this campaign.
So you can go first if you'd like.
One of the things that will stand out will be the crowds itself, because there were slight doubts about how the people will like acclimatize to a home Women's World Cup, given that the team has fallen short in crunch games and all that. So that was that's one memory that will always stay with me. The Navi Mumbai crowd not just turning up, but they had chants for individual players, and yeah, that will be one of the things that will stay with me.
Yeah, I think you've got to go with the Australia semi in terms of just the scale of the upset, not just for this World Cup, but in the wide ecosystem of all cricket matchups, and where, forget the 83 moment for the final and winning it for the first time and all. The 83 moment in terms of upsets also is right up there. That West Indies team and that Indian team, no matter what had happened, the odd win here and there, including in the group phase of the 83 World Cup, it was not supposed to happen. It could not happen, and it happened. And similarly, India, after losing the three that they did in the fashion that they did in the league phase against this Australian team, I mean, they might have shown signs of vulnerability, and we were talking that up because it's good content to say there's a chance maybe Australia will, Pakistan troubled them and India got 330 against them, but they were not. You don't expect Australia to lose, and you would need so much to happen to beat Australia on the night. Yes, they'll drop a few catches, but they're so good they get away with that. Can you be that good as well to chase 330 plus? Forget all that. So there will perhaps never be another ODI like that for a long time. I'd like to believe that. Because even if people beat Australia again, there's a reference point that it can be done, and that India could do it, and that these are vulnerabilities. Australian players feel pressure as well, though the gods are not gods, they're mere mortals. So there is a reference point for all that now. So that for me will remain the highlight for all time, that India beat Australia when they perhaps had the least right to do so, if I can put it that way.
Very well. While we are in celebratory mode, let me also congratulate you for what was an exceptional interview of Jemima Rodriguez at the end of that game.
I didn't do the hard
To
part.
think. Yes. But thank you for bringing that out to the world. It's hard to think that 2 weeks back we were sitting here thinking India have lost 3 in a row. What's going to happen of this campaign? Here they are, world champions. We've often had to say at the end of World Cup campaigns where India fought hard that remember the names, remember the fight they put in. No one needs to say anything now because history will remember the 2nd of November. Let's move to South Africa, Firdose. And it is worth lauding what they have achieved in this campaign as well, because at 69 all out, we thought, what will happen of South Africa? They made it to their first ever ODI World Cup final. Third time, not the charm, but how do you imagine this campaign will be looked back upon eventually?
Yeah, I like to see South Africa's progression at this tournament as a bigger part of the cricketing ecosystem in the country. So it's not just the national women's team that have made finals. We've had the under-19 girls make a final, we've had the men make two finals, we've had the under-19 boys make a semi-final. And I feel like for the first time ever, actually, pre or post readmission, South African cricket is working in totality. Everything's working together. There are plans and strategies being put in place that go across genders, that go through the development structures, that go beyond the elite schooling system and into academies and even into, township programs, for example, where Nonkululeko Mlawa and Nondumiso Shangasi come from, and really trying to make the most of the country's resources. So South Africa is not 1.4 billion, we're only 64 million, but we have a huge number of talented sports people in this country. And for too long, we were not unearthing that because you could only come through the elite sports schooling system. Now, I think we are really trying to delve into all corners of the country to find the people who will best make our national teams, be it cricket, rugby, football, all the other sports that we play as well. And so I think this forms part of that. I think they've had a great journey, new coach, 10 months in charge. I certainly didn't pick them to make the final at the outset. I thought they'd probably get to the semi-finals and that would be that. But we saw some exceptional performances. Laura Wolfart is growing into her own as a leader. A little bit sad that it's probably Marizanne Cup and maybe even Tasman Brits' last ODI World Cup, because it would be nice to see them perform with some of the younger players. But we've got an under-19 girls team that have also reached a final and some players coming through. So look, obviously people are disappointed. It really is hard to lose 3 finals as the women's team and 5 out of 6, across all formats and genders. But winning isn't everything. This is a country with a huge number of problems. They will all come home to their lives. They will be well celebrated when they arrive at OR Tambo International. And the sun's out. It's a new, beautiful day here in Southern Africa, and we will carry on. And one thing I will tell you about South African sport, South African people, is they are resilient and they will go again and go again and go again. And, at some point, maybe they'll win or maybe they won't. But they're definitely not down and out. So I feel like they did really well. And even the final, it was great that it wasn't a blowout. It wasn't a choke.
Yeah.
It was a team that played better than them on the night. And we could all see that. It wasn't a surprise to anyone. And I think they accepted their defeat very graciously. And I think India were really amazing hosts. I saw the crowd stand to applaud Laura Wolfart on her 100, which was magnificent, right? 100 in a final. So it was lovely to see that camaraderie, that friendship that has always existed was still there.
Yeah, sorry, I'll just quickly add for Firdose. I have no doubt in my mind South Africa will win a Women's World Cup under Laura Wolfart. And that's just because you could see how long she's going to play and you could see how much better she'll get and how she doesn't really need much support if she has to do it herself on certain days. If she had a little more support, they would have gotten over the line. And she's still young in her captaincy career. This was her first World Cup. And I have no doubt, I share the sentiments of a lot of Indian watchers here, that they felt like this game will slip. This game will go if Laura Wolfart doesn't get out. And Laura Wolfart didn't look like she was going to get out until she actually got out. So I genuinely think that they're doing the hard bit right, which is making more finals than anybody else. So once you get there, all you need is, if they were playing in a neutral venue, if they were playing without any sort of partisan crowd, who knows what the result would have been. And I think a lot of things went India's way on the night of the final. Dew didn't come this time. And little things like that worked. Shefali Verma was not the master plan ahead of the semi-final, and it worked. So, things like that will happen. But yeah, Sada, and the way Laura Wolfart conducted herself was tremendous. So I'd be absolutely gobsmacked if before Laura Wolfart's career ended, whenever it does, that she hasn't won at least one World Cup.
Yeah, congratulations to South Africa. I'll second what Raunak said. I know it took them about 100 semi-finals across formats to make a final. It's not going to take anywhere close to get past this this one remaining step. Let's move to Australia. It's not often you're 15 minutes into a Women's World Cup review and you haven't brought up Australia. They are allowed to lose an occasional trophy, and yet again, it took something of seismic nature to end their reign. But Sud, Alyssa Healy's comments at the end, speaking about it as another reignition for the group. It is a group that could stand to see several changes going into the next cycle.
I shudder what the next Australian team would be in the upcoming Women's Championship cycle. Because the last time they lost a ODI World Cup semi-final in 2017, everybody saw how much they stepped up. One of the moves was in Alyssa Healy being promoted to Open. But I think we've seen the last of Healy in an ODI World Cup. She herself confirmed that Ellis Perry hasn't yet confirmed her international future, but it's safe to assume that she might not be around when the 2029 edition rolls in. Same for Megan Schutt, who's been saying yes or no for this being her last edition. She's looking at next year's T20 World Cup as well. But you look at that squad, and there are more than able replacements for all these stalwarts of Australian women's cricket. There's Phoebe Litchfield. You look at her and you'd think that she's just 2 years or 2 years into her international career, but the kind of innings that she played in a World Cup semi-final against the host nation with the crowd against her team speaks volumes of her ability. And that switch hit of against Deepti Sharma will always stay in my mind as one of the images of this tournament. Same with Ashley Gardner. She's just 26, 27, a body of work that a lot of those who are leaving the sport can be perhaps proud of. So these are all these, the engine room's pretty much set. And you also look at tournaments like the WNCL, the National Cricket League, the Women's National Cricket League, their 50 overs competition, the WBBL, all these acting as the feeder system for the national side, being how strong in terms of the players and their skill set. I think it's safe to say that they can once again, even if haven't won this World Cup, they could be one of the scene setters as to the next template of the women's ODIs in women's cricket. So yeah, a lot to look forward to there. Interesting, but also intriguing in that sense.
Yeah, the last time they failed to win back-to-back World Cups, 2016 and 2017, they went on a 5-year spree where they won every single event there was. That's 3 T20 World Cups, 1 ODI World Cup, the Commonwealth Games gold. So yeah, fear Australia whenever the next tournament arrives, as we always do. It's time to start looking at the rest of the competition, and I'd like all of you to jump into these. Let's enter rapid fire mode, maybe. The team, and Firdose, you can go first. The team which would feel most disappointed about their campaign.
Probably Bangladesh. They came really close to a couple of wins. They could have beat England. They could have beat South Africa. I think there was a little bit of rain at some point in their campaign, and I think they might have pushed for a semi-final spot. And I was really disappointed for them. It's been 2 rough years for them. They were due to host the T20 World Cup last year and then didn't, and they were very hopeful then. I think they'll be a force. They've got some excellent players and a wonderful bowling attack.
Raunak?
I'll go New Zealand, even though they didn't have a lot of luck going their way. But when the equation was narrowed down to India at the bounce of 3 defeats and under serious pressure at that time, New Zealand have to treat that game like a quarterfinal effectively. And I just think sort of as well as India played, New Zealand were nowhere near the threat that they could have been, even though they're not amongst the sort of best 4 or 5 teams in ODI cricket, but we know what they're capable of and how they can overcome odds. And when they sense an Indian team that could be under pressure, which that Indian team was. So the fact that New Zealand could not put in a performance of equal scale in a game like that, I think that's where it'll be most heartbreaking and disappointing for someone like Sophie Devine, because you could sense after it all played out, it was more about not playing well against India than having some rotten luck with the washouts, which would hurt them.
So
I think I would say England, and you generally don't bracket a semi-finalist in this kind of a question, but I think when they reflect upon their campaign, they didn't really play like a side that made the semi-final. They were blowouts galore, and they made the semi-final on the back of a Heather Knight magic, a Nat Silverbrandt doing her thing, Sophie Eccleston, but outside of that, they left a lot to be desired. And these aren't all new players. They've been around the circuit for a long time. Tammy Beaumont's experience. Alice Capsey has played T20 leagues world over. The bowlers, Lauren Bell, has the skills that are needed. Lindsay Smith as well. And you also look at Charlotte Edwards. You almost were scared at the start of the tournament, given her winning record of coaches across WBBL, WPL, and the 100, and even England's domestic one-day competitions. You felt that she had a secret sauce to help teams win. But this campaign of England showed that it isn't always about the coach and her tactics. That skill sets need to be up there. And I think England disappointed a lot of us.
all right. Which of the four teams that did not make the semis had the most impressive World Cup? Raunak.
Yeah, I'll go with Bangladesh for the same reasons that Firdose chose them as the most disappointing. But there's no doubt that, well, we thought Bangladesh would barely give us moments to be excited about. And I think Isam also wrote a potential eighth place finish when he previewed Bangladesh and where they'd finish. So they did beat Pakistan, which is a great step forward to keep at least that one more win going. They only beat Pakistan in the last one, but if they lose to them and finish it this time, you'd feel like, oh, where's Bangladesh cricket gone, and all those sorts of things. And the fact that they played that big gamble of as many under 19 players and as many young players in this team, they're going in the right direction. They could have beaten England. They could have beaten which game am I missing? South Africa. My goodness,
Yeah.
and they should have beaten Sri Lanka. So that's 6 points that I know, and I did a chat with Sarwar Imran on his way out of the tournament, and he genuinely felt like, yeah, like I'm not leaving here saying, oh, we beat Pakistan and we nearly gave these guys a tough fight. He was very annoyed that they couldn't get 4 more points at least. So I think they're in the right step. Looking at the average age of most of their squad, they were the youngest squad in this tournament. The Marufa Akhtar story will have the same impact, like we've spoken of a lot of the Indian players. And I credit the storytelling as well. I'm not just complimenting my contracted colleagues at the ICC, but the fact that they could put Marufa Akhtar's story out, it was so brilliant. I'm sure we'll have a few more potential Marufa Akhtars coming through. Bangladesh were a real force in the under-19 World Cups. They've troubled India. They beat Australia in the 2023 edition that I was privileged to watch. So I think Bangladesh will take plenty from this. I just hope they get more competitive bilateral cricket and don't just have to make do with the 18 boys or the under 19 boys as prep. So that's what I'd like for them. But I think Bangladesh, big tick.
All right, Firdaus, the storyline that surprised you the most at this World Cup?
India beating Australia in the semi-final, I guess, and Jemimah Rodrigues coming from being dropped previous tournaments, being dropped in this tournament, and then coming back to score just an absolutely magnificent 100 for the ages.
So,
Shafali Verma redemption, not even part of the standbys, comes into the semi-final, has an impactful final. That's my pick.
Raunak, I suppose that's a second vote.
Shafali.
Yeah.
That's it.
All right. Enough said. Your player of the tournament, Raunak?
I think Deepti Sharma was the right call. With the way she started and ended the tournament, I think Fulfat would have been the undisputed choice had South Africa gone on to win. But Deepti Sharma for me.
Firdaus?
Yeah, I also think Deepti Sharma is the right one, and same with Raunak. I'll give it to Laura Wolford as a very, very close second. You know, she led with such fierce grace that it was really beautiful. So
you're making it 3?
Hard to disagree, but I want to throw in an Annabelle Sutherland just because of the unexpected nature. I don't think a lot of us would have had her in the top of the wickets charts or something, but the impact that she had in a subcontinent World Cup, I think she'd be one of those. Yeah.
All right. Deepti Sharma was given the award. She's the first woman to make 200 plus runs and take 15 plus wickets at one edition of the Women's World Cup. And finally, your favorite moment, Firdaus?
Oh, I don't know, actually. I guess South Africa beating England in a semi-final, because I'm always part of the Anyone But England club, and it's wonderful to see somebody beat England. So, yeah, South Africa getting to a first 50-over World Cup final, it's a special event for this country, and to reach there was momentous.
Raunak?
I'll never forget till my last breath what Navi Mumbai sounded like when India chased 339 against Australia. I saw people cry in the stands, which I can only remember the last time that happened was when I turned on the TV as a 13-year-old and saw South Africa, Australia, Joburg 430, 434. So they genuinely, I'll never forget that. Cops had lined up not to protect anything, but to watch the game themselves. And it was incredible. I'll never forget it.
So,
for me, it's the Jemimah Rodrigues press conference. Would have been easy for her to send someone else because she'd done TV, she'd done a few digital interviews as well, but she came there, honest answers, never for once let her emotions say, I'm feeling emotional, so that's it kind of a thing. Answered all questions with grace and was very raw, very true. So that will be, yeah, that's my pick.
Finally, the biggest lesson for cricket from this World Cup, Firdose?
It's a simple one. The future is female.
Brilliant. So,
Uh, I'll let Raunak go. I haven't applied my mind to this.
Correct. I'd say that the ODI World Cup could do with more teams, and that might actually make for a more competitive tournament beyond just the semifinals. There will still remain an expectation of the top four teams, with maybe one team threatening them. But I think if we break it up to include a few more teams, and the T20 World Cup is going that way anyway. So I hope it does go that way, because at the back of this, you want as many different nationalities and women playing ODI cricket. And yes, that's I finished the last one on that, a win for ODI cricket.
so very quickly.
I think make flatter pitches, given the stage of the given where women's cricket is at, that just evens out the competition. Flatter surfaces could be the way forward, at least in the immediate future, given that white ball cricket is the attraction as well.
All right. That is where we will wrap things on what has been such a special 34 days of cricket. Firdose, Raunak, Sudarshan, and thank you so much for your company all through this World Cup. Thank you also to the rest of our team, Valkyrie, Vishal, Shashank, Fidel, Shruti, everyone who's played a part in this World Cup and our coverage. Thank you to the team behind the scenes as well. This is the end of a historic World Cup. It's the start of a new world order, is it?
Thank you, Yash. And who knows, maybe.